I welcome you all to TEDxAstonUniversity 2021.
Hands have their own language. They can create, comfort, and destroy. They can sustain and annihilate, protect and punish. I want to share with you a story of a 20-year-old man named Jay. He was born to a teenage mother and a violent father. At the age of 3, after witnessing regular domestic abuse, Jay found his mother dead in bed from a drug overdose. He recalled her hands cold and rigid to the touch. After his mother died, Jay then went to live with his father, and his lifestyle was very entrenched in gangs. Since his mom died, Jay frequently wet the bed, and this was an action that he was punished and ridiculed for. He learnt that in order to keep safe, he needed to change the sheets himself without letting his dad know. So one night, creeping downstairs to do just that, Jay saw his father viciously beating another man and stamping on his hands. This image would haunt Jay's dreams to come for years. Jay's father later went to prison for murder. From the age of 8, Jay then went to live with his grandmother, and he remembers her as such a warm and welcoming mother who used to hold his hands until he fell asleep. But within 6 months of living with her, she died of a brain tumour. Jay was then placed into children's care homes, 6 in over 8 years. He never felt safe, he never felt settled, and he never felt like he belonged. So by the time he reached secondary school, he was disruptive. He was excluded in year 7 for fighting, and this resulted in him spending more time on the streets. But it was on the streets that Jay finally felt like he belonged. It wasn't long before Jay became involved in violent behaviour, and do you know what? He used his hands as his weapons. And at the age of 14, he received his first criminal conviction. But this didn't deter Jay. He stayed with his newfound street family, and his loyalty to them was undeniably strong. On his 17th birthday, not one person wished him a happy birthday. He didn't receive a card or even a text message. What he did receive was a 9-month custodial sentence for selling drugs. And inside prison, because of his father's reputation, Jay was a target. When he was released, he thought he had no future at all. All he thought about was surviving one day at a time. And so, at 19, homeless, jobless, and penniless, Jay, along with 2 older friends, took a gun and a machete and raided a petrol station outside of the city. Jay was arrested. The other 2 fled. A horrific story. And it was at this point that I was introduced to work with Jay, to rehabilitate him. But that word, rehabilitate, it's problematic. Re is a prefix, meaning to return to a previous state. But what if that state is steeped in trauma and negative experience? Just like in Jay's case, would you want to return to that? I want you to imagine something for me. I want you to imagine that you are all holding a hard-boiled egg and a spoon. And when I mention a traumatic event that has happened to you or to somebody that you know, I'd like you to imagine that you crack that egg with your spoon so that a crack forms on your egg. And this can be anything from the list behind me, or if you've ever witnessed any violence or domestic violence, if you've gone through a difficult breakup, or if you've experienced divorce from a young age. Now I'd like you to think, how broken would your egg be? How fractured would you be? All of us have cracked shells. We're all a little bit vulnerable and a little bit fractured. But not all of us go on to commit crimes. Most of us are resilient. We've got the ability to bounce back and move forward. But some of us don't. Some of us haven't had that value instilled in us from a young age. I did this exercise with Jay, and this was his egg. There was no way that he could be rehabilitated. It would go against my ethos, my values, to return anybody to this state of confusion and uncertainty. So let me ask you this question. Whose responsibility is Jay? Who does he belong to? Because everywhere he turned, he wasn't offered that helping hand that he so desperately needed. There's a whole debate surrounding what works in offender rehabilitation, and that lies on the accommodation you're in, mental health services that you can have access to, drug and alcohol treatment. And they do help in reducing offending behaviour, but they deal with the now. We, as a community, we have got to shift this focus. We need to help people like Jay recreate his future, and in order to do that, we have got to think both beyond and before the now. I refer to we as a community because I personally believe that young offenders who serve their sentence in the community have more opportunities, they've got more access to real life settings, and they've got the golden key, which is you, the community. They need to feel like they belong. I also think it's more effective to work with young people in the community than in prison, because when a young person goes to prison, I personally believe that they experience something called arrested development. This means that their maturity, their cognitive development, their emotional development, it becomes stunted. They don't grow or develop at the same rate that one would in the free world. Caged, locked up, cell. The words are restrictive, so why wouldn't the regime be? In order for us to grow as human beings, we need nurture, we need love, and we need creativity. There were gaps in Jay's cognitive deficits. He couldn't empathise with victims, he couldn't problem solve, he couldn't make positive decisions, and he couldn't think about the consequences that his actions would have on us, his community. So that's where this idea popped into my head. What if we could create something designed specifically for young people who'd offended, but instead of looking at the offence, we took the whole individual. We went right back to the beginning, creating an intervention that's inclusive, relatable, and catered for every single learning style. An intervention that could creatively change the young people like Jay, and an intervention that used you, the community. Ignoring trauma and past experience, it only strengthens them. They do not disappear. The silent screams reverberate, echoing internally inside you, keeping you prisoner to your behaviour and actions. Confronting trauma, now that gives us the strength to understand and conquer it. But not everybody knows how to confront such pain. But it's in that space of uncertainty that the arts, just like drama, can create that change. You see, there's an alternative approach to recreation, which is what we like to call it, because our company's called Recreate, rather than rehabilitation. And what we do is we explore past, present, and future scenarios with young people through the use of role play and performance. But it's all underpinned through psychological theory. Because if we don't understand the psychological makeup of a young person, where they've come from, the journey they've taken, how can we understand their human behaviour? Let me share an example with you of what I mean, of how we're able to work creatively in the community with young people like Jay. We use a technique called frame distancing, and it's about a perspective-taking exercise leading to developing empathy. It's an alienation technique that is used to gain a kaleidoscope perspective on an event. So when a significant event happens in our lives, let's go back to Jay. So this could be the suicide of his mother, the imprisonment of his father, the loss of his grandmother. The emotion is too raw for us to deal with it right there and then. So by using this strategy, we can safely remove Jay. We can look through his anger, his sadness, his confusion. We can explore those emotions with him. Once we've done that, only then can we start to look at the offence, because they've got a better understanding as to why that offence took place. They've developed emotional literacy, so they can articulate to us what they were feeling leading up to this offence. By taking on roles through role play, through performance of a number of people in the community, whether that be police officers, families, friends, shopkeepers, us as the community, they're able to see how their behaviour ripples and the impact that this can have on others. And the last box, this is my favourite. This is where the artist can come and transform the event for that young person. And the community are part of that. They're that support network. But even the general way that we work with young offenders has got to change. It's not a Monday to Friday 9 to 5 job that clocks off. It's about investing time, energy and heart. It's providing platforms for these young people to step up to and to own. It's about them taking their past and learning from them. Because let's face it, we've all got the opportunity to make mistakes, but it's what we learn from those mistakes that count. I'm not excusing offending behaviour, and I'm not saying that all crimes are mistakes. I'm simply shining a light on the power of arts and you, the community, in bringing about that change. In order to get the best out of our young offenders, we need to change our narrative and our approach. And that's where I developed a model through my PhD research, with creativity being at the heart of creating this change. And it was based on talking to young offenders and doing drama workshops with them. And do you know what they said they needed? You, the community. You see, the creative journey, it's just the start for them with us. It's the shellless egg, ready to start rebuilding, recreating. The rest is down to us through nurture, love and growth. And we all have our part to play. So, based on this model, let's go back to Jay. One of the things young offenders desperately need in their community is a family structure feel. Jay sought his family on the streets, and here is where his aspirations were developed. He modelled what was in front of him. But what if we can interrupt that false belief? What if we can replace friends being family? What if we can be those pro-social role models in the community? Surely that's going to reinforce pro-social behaviour. And mentoring, we train up ex-offenders to come and be mentors in their community. They've been there, they've done that, and they've served the prison sentence. So who better to listen to? And also 24-hour contact. Just being at the end of a WhatsApp message, a text message, a phone, is a massive comfort to people like Jay. And we need to remember that. In 2018 to 2019, we worked with over 500 young offenders, or those who were classed as high risk of offending in the community. And 85% of them did not reoffend or offend. Why? How? Well, drama's inclusive. There is no right or wrong answer. And when using characters and roles, young people are one step removed. They can project their own fears, experiences, beliefs, thoughts onto this character. And through a journey using performance, we can explore and rehearse pro-social outcomes. I genuinely, passionately believe, I know that this way works. But where it doesn't work is without collaboration. It doesn't work without community. You must have all heard the saying, it takes a village to raise a child, right? Well, it's true. We all have our roles to play. Communities full of individuals just like you and me, we can provide protective factors like a safe environment where young people feel encouraged, valued, included. Communities that are accepting, that can offer opportunities to these young people to see the wider world rather than these confined cages that they're so used to being in. We can create community bonds simply by being neighbourly. We can provide protective barriers that keep our young people safe and danger out. Do not accept anything but the best for where you live, for your community. For too long, there are communities who are full of individuals who can see but choose to be blind, who can speak but choose to stay silent, who can take action but choose to stand still. The fear narrative surrounding youth crime is so great, but we can change that narrative. Our society's become so focused on the concept of self that we've lost communal responsibility. We don't know who's in our own communities anymore. All forms of crime are a moral problem, and they can only be resolved on a moral level. For us, it's about instilling a moral compass through the use of drama and performance. We all know the underlying issues that are in our community at the moment. So the use of poetry, art, dance, music, spoken word, performance, we can share these issues in an emotive, yet a safe way. Because multi-agency work, that's the best hope we've got in supporting young people just like Jay. So why don't we start to see our communities as an agency? Why don't we use our doctor surgeries, restaurants, takeaways, schools, parks, libraries? I'd like you all to place your right hand out in front of you. This is called your hand of support, and this is an exercise that we do with young people at the start and at the end of their creative journey with us. Each finger represents somebody that you feel you can turn to in your community if you are ever in need. The sad thing is, young people on the start of their journey can't think of 5. Some struggle to think of 1. Can you make a conscious effort to encourage disenfranchised youth? Can you support their performances by being audience members? Can you smile when you pass them by or share your stories with them? Talk about how you overcame your personal barriers and limitations. Can you please just invest a little bit of time to talk to these young people, to be a positive role model in your community? Because by making these small gestures, you will be creating a huge change in the young people just like Jay. And he was fractured. All of us are fractured. The question is, will you be willing to be somebody on a hand of support? Are we ready to start making community safer? Because it starts with you and with your helping hand. Thank you very much.